Hello and welcome to Homemaking with Joy. My name is Rachel and it is nap time at my house, which means it's time to get things done. Today I am putting together a batch of easy whole grain muffins. These are a favorite snack at our house, a great breakfast, or anything to fill out my toddler's meals. If they're not really interested in what I'm serving, these are great to put on the side. Because they're made with freshly milled flour, they have a whole list of nutrients and they are so delicious, nobody would ever know. This recipe is from Felicia at Greens and Grit. I've only made one small change to her recipe. It's a pretty fabulous recipe. I've been making it a long time and will continue to make it for a long time. So without further ado, let's get started. This recipe requires 4.5 cups of freshly milled flour. I prefer to use hard white wheat. So I have hard white wheat berries here and I will get them into my mock mill. For me, 1 cup of freshly milled flour comes from 1/2 cup plus 1 tablespoon of wheat berries. So you'll see me do that 4.5 times into my mock mill. Now that my flour is milled, I just combine the dry ingredients in this bowl. I have 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And with this recipe, you can use honey as the sweetener or you can use sugar. I choose to use sugar because I have more of it on hand and I'm okay with that. So at this point, I will add it as a dry ingredient. If you're using honey, add it with the wet ingredients. 1 cup of sugar. Mix those together. This is a really basic muffin recipe. If you've ever made muffins before, do not let the freshly milled flour scare you. Voila. Then we put the wet ingredients in the mixer. Seriously guys, you can do this. We have 2 cups of buttermilk. I don't keep buttermilk on hand, so I put 2 cups of milk in a measuring cup and then added a little bit of lemon juice to make it acidic. Let it sit for a little bit and that works just fine. I think it's like 1 tablespoon of lemon juice per cup of milk, something like that. I've never measured and it always works out. Next we have 2 eggs. One cup of oil. You can use whatever oil you like, something mild. I generally use coconut oil because I keep that on hand. Coconut oil. Again, if you chose to use honey, this is where you would add it. And those are all the wet ingredients. I'm going to mix these together, add my dry ingredients, and mix those together again. Now to add my dry ingredients. Because I have a large Bosch mixer, I just add all of it at once. If you had a smaller, like a KitchenAid, you might want to add half at a time and then mix it. But I have a lid that I'm going to put on here so the flour doesn't fly everywhere, and this works well for me. All the wet ingredients, all the dry ingredients, we mix it together. Let me flip the camera around so you can see how quickly this comes together. It's really a super simple nap time task. I have the whisk attachment in my Bosch here, and this works great. I will not speed this up. There you have muffin batter. I'm going to scrape down the sides
and let it sit for a couple of minutes. Then I'll be back.
Like every recipe that uses freshly milled flour, I'm going to let this sit for a couple of minutes for the flour to absorb the liquids in the batter. Freshly milled flour takes longer to absorb liquids than all-purpose flour, and so this gives you a more realistic expectation of what your dough or batter should be after you let it sit for a couple of minutes. This is also when I tidy up the kitchen from the dishes that I've just made, and I'm going to prepare the add-ins. So you can add 2 cups of whatever you want to flavor your muffins. I'm going to do chocolate chips today. You can do strawberries, blueberries, fill in the blank, whatever you want. It's a basic muffin recipe. Just add whatever you'd like and it will turn out great. My batter's been sitting for a couple of minutes, so I'm going to give it one quick spin and then add my chocolate chips. Looking good. Chocolate chips. And I'm only gonna mix this enough to incorporate the chocolate chips the whole way around so that when I'm scooping, they're pretty well incorporated. That's it. Because you never wanna over mix, especially something like muffins, because the more you mix it, the more the gluten will develop, which is important if you're making bread. You wanna knead it and get that gluten developed so it's stretchy, but people don't really like chewy, textured muffins, not so much. So that's all I'm gonna do for now. And I'm going to grab my scoop and grab my muffin tin and make some muffins. One note about the chocolate chips, I also got this tip from Felicia and I really like it. I often use dark chocolate chips to help cut the sweetness. I feel like so many things in our world are so sweet, and so I don't want to run away from sugar, but I also don't want to get our palate accustomed to overly sugary things. So my chocolate chip cookies, the chocolate chips and the muffins, I like to use dark chocolate so they're not so sweet, especially since I have kids eating these. I don't want to deny them the pleasure of chocolate, but if I can make it a better option, that's what I'm going to choose to do. So pick whatever chocolate chips you like, or chocolate chunks, or whatever you like to do, but that's an idea that I got from Felicia and I really appreciate using it. I'm very excited to test my new muffin tins. I've been wanting these for a while, and thank you, Mom. These are the USA brand muffin tins, and they are a great option. They're healthy, but they work really well. These are the same baking sheets that I use too. So I've heard a couple of people say that they're truly non-stick. So I'm only going to grease half of these wells, and then the other half we're gonna see if the muffins do just slide out. I like to grab just some coconut oil and use my fingers and rub it in there. And then I grabbed my cookie scooper. I do 2 scoops of muffin batter in each one to make sure they bake evenly. And one note, the only change I made to Felicia's recipe, she gives a range of like oven temperatures and times for baking. I have a hotter oven, so instead of her 375 to 400 recommendation, I bump it down to 350 and increase the baking time by about a minute. So my muffins bake for 350 for 15 minutes. Also, those were my old baking sheets, so I might have to play it by ear with these too. But this is how it goes with all recipes on the internet. You have to make it work for your life and your kitchen and your baking goods. So let me fill up this muffin tin and then we'll pop them in the oven, and I guess we'll find out how long these bake. Tin is filled. Forgot to note, the side with the USA pan, these were the ones that were greased, so we'll see how this does. But they're ready to go in the oven. See you back in a bit. The first pan is out of the oven. They're beautifully golden brown. I'm going to give them a couple minutes to set, and then I will pull them out and put them on the cooling rack. Very interested to see how easily they come out.
My kids will be very excited when they wake up because they get muffins. I took 2 out to test it, and this is crazy. So these have been greased, these have not. I'm using a plastic fork to dig it out because I don't want to scratch my nice pan, but they lift right out. That was a greased one. Yum, yum, yum. And then a non-greased one lifts right out. That's amazing. That is so easy. Whew, they are still hot though. I did end up baking these for 15 minutes at 350 degrees. I have another pan in the oven that will be done soon. This usually makes 2.5 dozen for me. The hardest part will be making my children wait until they cool, until they dig in.
Enjoy.